Very good. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We are very excited today to introduce our tax relief plan for Minnesotans. This has been a priority for us right through the election. We know that when we got our February forecast that state government is projected to collect almost $2 billion, too much money from Minnesotans over the next 2 years. So our priority is to take a stark turn from the last 2 years of spending every dime that they can get their hands on and really prioritize Minnesotans. So our plan will put the majority of that money right back into the family budgets of Minnesotans. As we rolled out our budget targets, we said numerous times that our priority and our overarching theme of our budget was to make sure that state government spending didn't grow faster than Minnesota family budgets. And we think that this is a principle that Minnesotans agree with. What we're showing in our budget is that we can invest in priorities like education and roads and bridges. We can put money in our rainy day fund, and we still can provide significant tax relief to Minnesotans that will help them and their families and help grow Minnesota's economy. At this time, I'd like to introduce Majority Leader Peppin.
Well, our priority for this tax package is very clear. It's middle-class families of Minnesota. We've created a new Minnesota personal or dependent tax exemption that could save a middle-class family of 4 more than $500 over the next 2 years. We've also directed dollars towards families of children of K-12 through high school seniors through expanded education deductions. And then for the next step, we're allowing families saving for higher education cost to deduct their contributions. And Representative Drazkowski, Chair Drazkowski from the House Property Tax and Local Government Division will describe more.
We traveled to a dozen communities across Minnesota and heard from over 500 Minnesotans in those dozen communities, listening to them about their concerns around Minnesota's high property taxes. We repeatedly heard about the unbearable property taxes being placed upon farmers and small business owners. The legislation before us today lowers the property tax burden on rural landowners. It brings fairness in the area of school construction levies to farmers. Instead of them being in a position where they're paying 10 to 1 as much as their city cousins, it brings it to 5 to 1. It helps ensure that our state's farmers can pass on the farm to the next generation. We heard that overwhelmingly at the stops along the way in the rural areas that we did go to. It phases out the statewide general property tax to help our state's struggling small businesses survive and hopefully thrive. We heard from small business owners, whether they're cafe owners or convenience store owners or bait shop owners or whatever we heard as we went to the different towns that we went to. We heard about fatigue among the small business owners about the property taxes they were paying. This bill helps restore opportunity. It encourages economic growth and starts to bring an increase in the family median incomes that we've been seeing struggle here in the state of Minnesota. Next, I'd like to introduce Don Niemi, who is an Aiken County Commissioner.
The state general tax is very devastating to small town, outstate Minnesota. Seasonal trade is the rule out there. For 5 months of the year, 50% of the business goes down during the fall and winter months. The state general tax in Aiken County, for example, increases the actual real estate tax 25 to 40%. I've got an example here of a small rural cafe. They pay $12,242 in property tax. Of that, $4,281 is the state general tax. That's over 400 meals this lady has to make to pay just the state general tax. In recent years, the town of Aiken has seen a bakery, very popular to the people that come up there, close, a hardware store close, and an appliance store close. This is happening across outstate Minnesota and many of our small towns. So repeal of this state property tax would go a long way in helping these people keep the lights on.
Well, thank you very much for being here today. It's certainly an exciting morning for Minnesotans. You may read in various publications from my good friends on the other side of the aisle that this is more corporate handouts, corporate bailouts, but as you look through the spreadsheets, I hope before statements like that are made, you'll look through the spreadsheets and you'll see that over 75% of this bill is targeted to the middle class and to actual Minnesotans, not corporations. Over 75%. So, that being on the record, this bill really focuses in on the middle class, senior citizens, military, retired military. The fine work of Chair Drazkowski and his committee gives some much needed property tax relief. And this is a very, very bipartisan bill. If you look at provisions in the bill, you'll see that we didn't say whose bill is it, we said what does it do. And so if you look at the various items that we put in here, I'm very excited to carry House File 848 from the increase in personal exemptions, Social Security subtractions, long-term care credits, K-12 subtraction, fitness facility subtraction. I had to do some research on that. I wasn't really sure what a fitness facility was. I drove by one once, but it's good for folks that use those types of institutions. 529, Representative Will's bill on 529s. Very, very important for the middle class, for families trying to save for their sons or their daughters' education. Very important part of this bill. Charity care subtractions, long-term care savings plans, master's degree credits, student loan forgiveness is a very, very big part of our bill. So this really hits the middle class. It helps students that have high student loan debt. Section, there's just, as you look through the bill, you'll notice a couple things. You'll notice its bipartisan nature, and you'll notice that it's to help middle-class Minnesotans. So students pursuing college degrees are winners. Aging adults trying to plan for their future are winners in this bill. Families with young children. Innovators working that want to produce and grow jobs. And I would just say that after 2 years of massive tax increases, some Minnesotans I've talked to have simply given up hope. They say we can't take an increased tax burden. But with the 2015 House Republican tax bill, I'm here to tell those taxpayers, don't stop believing. We'll open it up for questions. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Questions?
Can you guys describe the new tax credit that you guys say, the state version of the federal exemption?
Yes, thank you. What we're doing there is, at the federal level, you have a $4,000 exemption just because you're you. Every person has that exemption. We thought to spread this out among all Minnesotans, why don't we give a $1,000 credit per person on your Minnesota returns? And so that's what that is. It's a big chunk of our budget, but that's a big chunk of our budget that's going right back out to Minnesotans so they can use their money. And it really, you know, we have two different philosophies here between the Senate and the governor and the House. They seem to want to grow government. What we're looking at is how do we grow Minnesota families? How do we grow the Minnesota middle class? How do we help Minnesotans grow? Because I happen to believe that they know what to do with their money better than we do. That's just a basic philosophical difference. So what that does is that puts money back in the pockets of every Minnesotan, and it's patterned at this. That's patterned after the federal exemption. We don't go 4,000, we go 1,000.
To be clear, that's not $1,000 in people's pockets. That just reduces their liability. So what is the typical person? What does that mean in terms of dollars?
Well, it's basically what it is. It's a subtraction. It's not a credit, so it's not the whole $1,000. That will affect over 2 million Minnesotans, and it all depends on. It'll depend on, you know, when you get done with your taxes, what your tax bracket is. You know, it'll vary. So you can't say it's going to save this person this much, this person this much, but every Minnesotan will be treated the same on that. And it's actually kind of progressive because what you're doing is you're saying if you're at a lower income rate, you can even knock off more of your income from taxation.
What's the total price tag of that item?
It's about 500 and some million. I don't know if somebody has a spreadsheet here. 538 million? What? 538 million.
And that's your
biggest single ticket item, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And why spend that much on that?
Because it's for every Minnesotan. It's many of the things we're doing might be for college students, military retirees, Social Security recipients. This one hits everybody.
Have you done an analysis on the whole package? Is it all going to make the tax code more regressive or more progressive?
We haven't done an analysis. That's for Dr. Wilson over at the department to do when he sees what we have here. But there are some real things that make it less regressive in this bill. Yes, sir.
There's some phase outs, including like on the commercial, industrial, and social security benefits that would make it far more expensive in years 5 and 10. Are you setting up a kind of fiscal time bomb here for future legislatures?
Very, very good question. And one thing I did not want to do is have the tails explode on us and put us in a situation where we see a lot of deficits. So we've been very careful on a lot of these issues to try and rein the tails in. And we, of course, have to get that by our good chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, and so far, so good. But we're very well aware of that. We don't want to set up a situation where down the road we start hitting deficits.
So how much does this cost in out years?
In the out years, it's, help me out. Who has the spreadsheet? Okay, 18, 19, we're at about 6.5 billion for 18, 19.
So that would be, is it fair to say 3 times what it is now in terms of tax cuts?
Could you,
What did you say it was, 6 billion?
about, the tails for 18 and 19 are about 6.5 billion, 6.587 billion. Right.
So it would be 3 times.
That's got your total cost.
No.
Because here you're at 5.6.
Yeah, see, right now, currently we're at 5.6, so it goes from 5 point, it goes up about 900 million, which I think is manageable.
Can you guarantee this next year, you were around for the Ventura year, big tax cuts followed by big deficits? Can you guarantee that won't happen?
No, no. But what I can guarantee is that if you let Minnesotans use more of their money, and they have that money go through the economy 7 times, you may argue that, that we should actually receive more. But now, if we go into a big national recession, all bets are off. But the basic philosophy of this bill is Minnesotans know to do their money better than state government does. Something else we do in the bills, unlike the governor's proposal, we put $100 million into the reserves to hopefully kind of soften that possible blow down the road. Who knows what the economy is going to do? If the economy goes up, this bill is wonderful, we're all a bunch of geniuses. If the economy goes down on us, we're still geniuses, but the numbers don't look as good.
Are all the tax cuts in here permanent, or is there any kind of one-time drawdown?
What I tried to do in this tax bill is I tried to, as someone mentioned over here, kind of phasing things in, because some of these things cost too much. If you just do the whole CI right today, it's what, Chair Drazkowski, 1.7 billion? 1.7 billion. So the way that we design this bill is to get several things going, not taxing military pensions, not taxing Social Security benefits, and so on. So rather than doing 1 or 2 big things, I wanted to get a lot of really good things started, and that's what we did here.
Chair Davis, did you consider just doing an income tax rate reduction, like some Senate Republicans have proposed doing, or why did you decide not to go that route?
I wanted to bring as many folks into some tax relief as I possibly could, and any time that you start messing with percentages of rates, you actually get into some problems with not being very progressive, quite regressive actually, because even if you cut the lowest rate, it benefits the higher income folks the most. And so that's an approach, we wanted to have a lot of our relief go through the credit, or not the credit, I'm sorry, the exemption. Go through the exemption. So we didn't get into specific rates. That's not the approach we're taking.
So does this mean you're no longer going to go after those rate increases that Governor Dayton put into law on the upper income? Have you given up on that?
Well, don't stop believing. We're a long ways from being done with this thing. The reason that I didn't go after the 4th tier, and maybe I'm wrong on this, the reason I didn't go after that's a premier position that the governor got passed in 2013. Okay, that's his top piece of legislation. If I had gone after that, what kind of credibility do I have that I really want to get a bill signed? Members of the press, I want to get a bill signed. I want to get a bill signed. And I don't think you start off by going after one of the governor's prime positions that he's had. I don't think that would have been in good faith. I think there's some things. In fact, if you look at the spreadsheet and then you match up with what the governor's proposal was, you'll see there's a lot of things in there. We didn't talk about child dependent care credit for the middle class. We didn't talk about. We took provisions out of the governor's proposal that we thought were credible. They're in the bill. Some issues with Wisconsin and child care credits going across state lines, some things there, some estate tax issues we put in the bill for the governor to clean up a few things there. So, you know, but again, it boils down to the basic philosophy. What do you want? You want bigger government, or do you want the people of the state of Minnesota just to make the decision on how they spend their money?
But you've only included a portion of the governor's child care tax credit. How does that help?
I think it helps a lot. And I think if you can talk to Commissioner Bowerly or the governor himself, they just wanted to see that there was a position in the House that was in there. And I don't know where the Senate's coming from there. They may not have it. I don't know that. But as far as the $104 million that the governor was looking at, that goes up to where it's phased out at $124,000 of income. So you have to ask the question, someone making $124,000 of income a household, do they need a child care credit? Kind of hard to justify that one. So I think the governor's, I like the idea the governor had, but I think he used a little bit high on his numbers. So by having a strong placeholder in there, it says that we're serious about the governor's provisions on child care credits. And that's, again, another issue that really helps the middle class.
Mr. Chairman, your second biggest dollar amount on here is phasing out the statewide general property tax, basically business taxes. Explain to folks why that is your number 2 priority after helping middle-class Minnesotans.
I'm going to refer that to Chair Drazkowski. That's in the division report.
Thank you. You know what, the approach that we took on that affects, we started, and Representative Hertas is here, it was patterned after his bill. And what we do is we repeal the first $500,000 of value of every business, every business throughout the state, including from Ada to La Crescent to Laverne to Cook. And so that's the approach that we took there. And maybe, you know, I think Don really covered it the best. As we went out and talked to folks, this was one of the top 3 things that we heard at every location was the people who came out. Many of them were small business owners saying, we are struggling. Realize this is a this is a property tax on top of those local taxes that each of those businesses pay as well. And so as we try to get our economy going here in the state of Minnesota, we really believe, especially as we went to a lot of these towns, and some of them were really small towns, that this will help get the economy going again, help those folks get back up on their feet and get going so that they don't stop believing.
If you means test the child care credit, why not means test or keep it to small businesses rather than all businesses?
Well, this does affect small businesses the very most. As a matter of fact, and Don and I were talking earlier, and he could maybe speak more to it, but the businesses in my town that I'm in and in Don's town that he's in, I would suspect that this tax probably liberates those businesses from near 100% of their statewide business tax liability. So those are the businesses that it's really going to help. The huge corporations that you know, the skyscraper in Minneapolis is not even going to see or feel this on their radar. It's the small businesses throughout Minnesota that this is going to significantly help.
Seasonal rec also being phased out?
It is, yes. And
how much is that?
That's $250,000. The first $250,000 of value is included in the seasonal rec side, which, as I remember, Don, out of the $1.7 billion is about 49 or so million, 43. That's 40 or 50 million out of the 1.7 billion.
The name of the city of Minneapolis appears an awful lot in your documents here, LGA, local sales tax, and library aid. Why specifically does that city appear so often?
Well, you know, if you go back to the library aid, I guess that's probably because that was added 2 years ago, I think at the surprise of many, and as we look at priorities in the budget, realize that that wasn't one that we look forward as a priority. I think that's probably it. The LGA approach, the focus that Representative Quam took with his bill focused on the 4 cities of the first class and realized that they were being paid significantly more than the average of the rest of the cities throughout the state. As a matter of fact, under this bill, those 4 cities on average will still be getting more LGA than the average of the rest of the cities in the state.
So Chair David, do you have a sense of how this breaks down overall between rural and metro? Is it skewed to greater Minnesota?
I don't have a breakdown on that. I didn't really look at that. Back to the CI just a little bit here, though. That is, I did ask staff to figure out how much of this is to individuals, how much of this is to corporations and businesses. I think that's important, because when anyone says that this is just for big business, they haven't read the bill. They haven't read the bill. For example, on the CI side of things, I've owned, I don't know how many commercial buildings in my life, a lot. The happiest day in my life was when I bought them. The second happiest day was when I sold them. But I've had many commercial buildings, and I own them all individually. So that's not some big corporation. That's just little old me from Section 28, Sumner Township, Fillmore County, trying to do good things for folks. So that you have to count part of the CI as individual, because there's a lot of individual ownership. And the HRTOS provisions that the division took, if you look at them, they're just amazing. What they do for small town Minnesota is very, very beneficial. Very, very beneficial.
David, you know the governor is probably not going to agree, or the Senate, to a $2 billion tax cut.
We're close. We're close. We're within $2 billion. Yeah.
I mean, so I guess, are you going to scale this plan? Is your hope to scale the plan, or is your hope to drop some things and prioritize other things? So at the end of the day, when the budget negotiations happen, what are you going to prioritize?
Well, the beauty of many items in House File 848 is that they are scalable. What do you do with military pensions? I mean, only 6 or 7 states tax those anyways. What do you do with Social Security? What do you do with this, that, and the other thing? They're all very scalable. The credit for loan forgiveness, for example, that's all very scalable. So Speaker Daudt and Leader Bach will come up with a number. I'm under no illusions that this bill is going to pass as is, but there's a lot of very good provisions in this bill that help a lot of Minnesotans. And I'd like to keep a lot of them in there. And if it's not $2 billion but $1 billion, we'll work with those numbers. I don't know what the numbers are. I go with the numbers I have. That's exactly what we did here. So, any other questions?
Can you talk about the break for cigarette and tobacco? The breaks for cigarette and tobacco, they're significant.
I don't know if I'd say breaks. What I would say is that we're not cutting the tobacco tax. The tobacco tax for cigarettes is $2.90. In fact, because of that tax, it has created crime. We have smugglers coming in from North Dakota and from Missouri. So because we are so out of whack with our neighboring states, for example, North Dakota's in the 40s and we're at 290, all we did on that was stop the inflator. That's all we did. We stopped the inflator. Now, in the governor's proposal, if you look, he's asking for 11 smoking hot tobacco cops. Why do we need those? Because we're so out of whack on our tax on that. I mean, I don't like cigarettes. I don't like them at all. I just don't like it. But you know what? I proposed in the past, let's just ban them. Just ban them. I was the first mayor in the country to ban cigarette machines in a city in 1980 and 8. So to say that we're whacking away at tobacco taxes because we stopped the inflator and didn't cut them at all, I think you need to kind of relook at that a little bit. Yes, that's an interesting bill. Some of those products have kind of been able to evade taxation. They're under the radar screen. And so that's in the bill because I want to take a look at, is there some fairness in the tax on vapor products? At one time they were just the thing that was going to stop all smoking and do all sorts of good things. Hasn't quite turned out that way. But the reason I put that in the bill is I want to look at why are so many things that the vape shops have not being taxed. And we're getting a lot of mail on that, but that's something I want to look at. Well, it's actually a deduction, but see, what's happened is some of the companies are paying a tax right up here at 95%, and some are getting by without paying anything. So yes, there would be a break on that, but that portion of the bill I put in more for, I want to have a discussion, and I want to work with Chair Lancheski on that issue. She's worked on in the past, and I think the way the law is written, a few things kind of got on the radar screen that I want to bring out in the open.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
there's a bunch of exemptions on sales tax in here for certain building projects. Would any of them allow some soccer folks in Minneapolis to latch on?
Well, technically, that's more for, no, actually, that wouldn't work. No, because it's private. No, it wouldn't. You're very creative, though. I hadn't actually thought of that. That's interesting, because what we did is we said, back my first year in 1991, we had a budget deficit, and we put sales taxes on purchases by units of government. And that's probably not the best tax policy in the world, but to keep their LGAs where they needed them and so forth, that's what the agreement was. And so I've been slowly carving away at that over the years. We got rid of the sales tax when you purchase an ambulance, when you do this and you do that and the other thing. This is taking it a step further to get rid of more sales tax on more items that local governments purchase.
For soccer in this bill?
I don't think so, because that's a no.
No, there's not.
I
can answer that.
And Super Bowl?
So with that, more questions or?
Soccer.
Okay, what I would just say before I turn it back over to the speaker is this. I love this state. This is a bill that, if enacted, would help every person in this state. Do I think the whole thing's going to go? No, I don't. But there's some very good provisions. I want to thank the Republicans and the Democrats on the tax committee. I want to thank Chair Drazkowski, Representative Hertaus for their tremendous work on the property tax division. And like I've said, in the various cities in Minnesota, from Adrian to Peterson and from Florence to Henderson, this is a good bill.
So thank you again for joining us. We really are proud of this bill. We're proud of the direction that we're headed. Our goal has been from the beginning to give Minnesotans the tax relief that we think they deserve. Let's leave more money in their family budgets. And I'll remind you again that while we're proposing to put more money into Minnesota family budgets, Democrats are again doubling down on the highest gas tax increase in state history, one of the most regressive taxes that you could put in place. And while we want to put more money into family budgets, Democrats again are trying to take more money out of family budgets. And enough is enough. This bill and this budget really shows that our priority is on Minnesota families. We've shown that we can fund our priorities of education, health and human services, senior citizens, lots of things, and still give Minnesotans the tax relief that we know that they want and need, frankly, that will help Minnesota's economy grow and help their families. So with that, any last questions for me?
When's this going to be on the floor?
That's a good question. Next,
It'll be out of committee.
They're all going to go in the next, 8 days, probably 9 days. So we're going to run the entire budget through the next 8 or 9 days.
Next
So.
week, probably? Should be next week.
Either later this week or early next week. So.
Don't stop believing.
Very good. Thank you all very much.